Hello everyone, my name is Asif Gill. I'm professor and head of discipline software engineering at the School of Computer Science, University of Technology, Sydney. Today we have our guest, Keith Sherringham. He'll be discussing all things data and AI with us. So welcome, Keith.
Thank you very much.
So I'm going to start with you first. It's a bit of introduction to tell us about our audience who's looking at us and watching this podcast. So tell me your experience over a period of time you spent in data and IT. I would say 30 plus years, right?
Yes. So believe it or not, I actually started out in oceanography. Back then, you had to write your own code, to analyze your own data, to do the scientific research. So the background hasn't been the technology, it's been getting the outcomes from the technology and the data. Over the years, it strayed into a little bit more on the data management side, and then now into business consulting, especially around the implementation of AI and the role of data within the implementation of AI and realizing the business outcomes.
As you said, there's a lot of hype about data and AI, and in particular, data being an asset. So tell me, why does it matter?
We live in a world of data. Data is profit and loss. Data is how you keep your job. Data is how we service customers. Data is how we protect businesses. Data is how you get a hot date.
Yep.
So data is fundamental to everything that we do. And as we do AI more and more, data plays a critical role in underpinning AI and the services and outcomes that we're going to get from AI. Data is more than putting records into computers and more than putting records into archives, and we'll talk about that as we go forward.
Yeah. Very, very interesting. You mentioned about data being a profit and loss, right? So data being an asset, do you think it will make it to the balance sheet?
In mergers and acquisitions, the value of data is part of the mergers and acquisitions. In Singapore, they tried to do a data governance framework, and part of that data governance framework was valuing data, the cost of replacement, and the use of data. One of the challenges with data from an accounting point of view is it's difficult to value and which bits of data do you use. So it's invariably data is just an asset which is given a value to the business, just like a brand. As we go forward, that may change, but I think we'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
Excellent, excellent. While you were saying that merger and acquisition and data being an asset, so I assume there will be a lot of data contracts every organization has. I mean, one we have with you now to publish this interview. So tell me about it. How hard or what is involved in that when merger and acquisition happen? The data contracts, how we deal with them?
Right. Whether it's explicitly written down or it's implied, we all do data contracts every day of the week. You give your wife your credit card details, she purchases the groceries with it or something online. There's an ownership responsibility, there's a custodianship responsibility, and there's an implicit contract. Now, as we become more sophisticated and the things that we do are greater, the more stakeholders involved, the more complicated and the greater the need for contracts. Mainly at an undergraduate level, it's just assumed and it's in place. When you get out into the big wide world and into business, being able to have that data, knowing that it's of an implicit quality that you can use, knowing what you can use it for, knowing that you're not going to breach copyrights and IP, all of these things come from data contracts. And data contracts is a big part of data governance, and it's a big part of the management of AI. And we're already seeing it out in the real world where contracts aren't in place and AI has caused problems.
That's a very interesting point you made about the credit card. I mean, all the time, whether as a staff member or students or other employees, they essentially, when they join the university or as a staff or student, they're giving away their data, right? And they're signing contracts. So essentially, a lot of things we do today, they are data contracts. And about us, about our bank details, about our education experience, what the courses we have attended or what we plan to do. So there's a lot about the data contracts. And that's kind of the first-hand kind of information or data we collect. But also we have third-party data, the external data we have. So when we're looking at merger and acquisition, so I'm assuming that you're also drawing attention to us, okay, not only the internal data, but also the contracts with third parties. Are they transferable to the new merger?
Absolutely. So what happens is, you've got vendors, you've got channel partners, you've got regulators and agencies that you work with. If we look at some of the data breaches that have occurred, the data breaches haven't been with the major company. They've been with a much smaller business that's a channel partner selling services and products who's not geared up for managing some of the challenges that are emerging. And as part of any mergers and acquisition, these data contracts and the rolling over the contracts is a critical component now of the negotiations. And even if you're just two government agencies agreeing to share data to provide healthcare to the general public, there's a key element in the contracts: trust. You trust the source of the data,
Yes.
you trust the use of the data, you trust the outcomes of the data, you trust the security, you trust the storage. We haven't got time to get into trust now, but very quickly. Trust is one of the key aspects of both data and AI.
Excellent, excellent. So Keith, is not all about managing data in the database. It's not about database only. It's about the contracts, about the governance and the trust. So my next question to you around that. So, okay, we need to manage data as an asset, right? But there are a lot of things around data. So how should we go about managing data?
Okay, that's quite a large conversation. There's a couple of key points that needs to be there. Managing data starts off with boards and executives. It permeates through the company, through IT, and through the shared service and support like risk, audit, and that sort of thing. Universities actually have a critical role to play here, because if you're doing a business degree, having knowledge of data, data management, data risk, sovereign risk, strategic risk, operational risk is required. If you're doing a degree in medicine, you need to know how to manage data. You have to meet various privacy issues. You need the audit trail to show that you do. If you're doing a technology degree, you need to understand not only the business side and the business management of data, but also the sort of some of the technical aspects and the roles and responsibilities. So when this is specifically to the undergraduates out there, make sure that your lecturers are teaching you data management, they're teaching you the business management of data, and they're teaching you the operational aspects of data. And of course, if you're doing an IT degree, the answer speaks for itself.
The database, the data lakes and the data warehouses, what we have evolved in the last 50, 60 years. Okay, so strong data foundation is critical. That's what I'm getting from you.
Yeah.
before jumping on the AI bandwagon. Everybody likes AI, right?
Yeah, this is one of the issues with AI. We know AI is transformative. We know that any new tech coming along the pipeline goes through a bubble of hype. If we're looking at the pragmatic, practical take-up of AI, it's the data, the access to the data, the quality of the data, the use of the data that is slowing down and impacting the use of and outcomes from AI. When you walk into the country, you have to have your passport scanned, and if you meet all the criteria, you get into the country. We use the gates and the smart passports. There's a single authoritative source of data, of known quality. Different AI technologies are used to scan you at the passport gate, match the data, and let you in. It's a relatively closed loop. And fundamental to it is this single authoritative source of data, which is of good quality. As we do more and more complicated things, it becomes more open loop, more sources involved, quality becomes variable. And this is where AI is struggling. In the open loop world, it's working its way through the issues, but the data is underpinning it and is causing many of the issues within LLMs and algorithms.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Keith. And I like the example of the getting into the country and crossing the borders, because it's not about crossing the border physically, but also your data is actually coming from international. So, I mean, we can talk about the international data flow some other time, but I just want to touch on that point about the trusting data or trustworthy data in AI and the role of auditing. Because if data is an asset, should we audit the way we audit the normal other financial statements and records?
Okay, audit is a complicated question with many components to it. Now, when I say audit, please don't fall asleep. Audit is about protecting a business. Audit is about growing a business. Audit is about servicing customers. And audit is about keeping your job and being better in your job. There's many component parts to audit, but one of the big ones is this. We audit business outcomes. Technology, data, and AI are just part of that overall operation and process to deliver an outcome. So even if we're unfamiliar with how a particular algorithm works, we can still audit AI by auditing the end outcomes. I'll give you a very quick example. If we've put court cases into AI, not quality controlled the outcome, and gone into court and had the case thrown out, and I'm sure we can all list half a dozen high-profile cases. The audit is saying our briefs and our court documents have gone down in quality. Let's take a look at why. And we can do that right now. So in essence, there's a lot to the audit, but audit AI and data and technology through business outcomes. That's the starting point. And then as capacities and capabilities grow, skills and expertise, you can get into the other areas.
That's a very interesting thought which you shared with us, Keith, about auditing with the view of business outcomes. Because usually we get into the nitty-gritty of the data quality and other things, but we need to start with the outcomes first and then lead into the data audits. On that point, audit itself is a process or a capability. How we can measure the success of a good audit?
Okay, the simple answer is this. In establishing the audit, the performance criteria needs to be established. Now, obviously, you're going to have some assurance process around that, but the purpose of the audit, the expected outcomes, the performance criteria, that is set in the audit. And if you're operating a business that doesn't do that, that's one of the areas of audit to address. Now, when you go down 2 or 3 layers and you look at a specific systems audit, data quality audit and that sort of thing, yes, it becomes more nuanced and more sophisticated. But the fundamental starting point is the audit is setting the criteria. So if you have to report on privacy breaches on patient records to the health authority, that's the criteria.
Excellent, excellent. I think we have a lot to share, but you shared really great insights with us. I want to ask you a last question. We are increasingly going into the digitized and intelligent, augmented world of AI. So what good looks like for the organizations and individuals in terms of handling data and AI? I know it's a big question, but what are the couple of things you will say to the people, take away out from your whole experience?
Right. What does good look like with data, AI, assurance and governance and that sort of thing? There's a couple of key parts to that. One is the leadership, your boards, your executive. They need to have this as part of their portfolio of activities and their management criteria. You've only got to look at the large data breaches in large companies to know that this issue starts with the board and the executive. The second key area is skilling, training, readiness, and awareness. Now, it's in times of financial pressure, we know skilling and training budgets get cut quite quickly. It's a risk mitigation activity. The third area comes back to risk and management of risks with controls and processes. And the final area is embedding in business operations so that it is not an afterthought, so that it is not something that you come to afterwards. So if you look at banks around the world that have had problems with financial crime, the leaders have said financial crime is part of the operation. We meet financial crime, that's a selling point. You as a customer, your money's safe. So embedding it in the business. So the key areas, management, board and executive, having the required controls, audit and assurance, having the skilling and training, and embedding it into business operations so it is just part of what you do. And I know that sounds very simple to do, but it's in the implementation.
Absolutely. I think that's really great, Keith. I know data and AI both are the complicated things, not only complex. But really, thank you very much to you to joining us and sharing your knowledge with us and our students and our audience. So on that note, I would like to thank everyone who is watching or listening us. And thank you to our industry leader, Keith Sherringham. And till then, we'll say again, thank you. Bye.
Thank you all. Please enjoy and please benefit.